Joe Manchin said what about Social Security? I have all the details and what you need to know right here in the video, so let's get right into it. Alright, Joe Manchin is back in the headlines as he was recently out making some remarks about Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, and how he wants to start working on bipartisan legislation in a good way on these programs. That's what I want to discuss right here in the video, as this is actually looking very discouraging, so let's get into it and discuss what's going on. Also, some bonus remarks out of Bernie Sanders. So let's get right into it. However, really fast before we do, thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here or if you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe by hitting the button right down below the video, as it's totally free to do so. And because I am your one and only daily advocate, I'm here for you right by your side each and every day, doing all the necessary research and watching all this new information hitting the wire, breaking it all down into these short videos so you can stay updated with what is actually going on, and most importantly, how it's going to impact you, your money, your benefits, your lifestyle, your bank account, and anything else going on out there, especially with this bipartisan legislation that Joe Manchin is talking about and what I want to discuss with you right here in this video. I also do want to point out anything out there right now you can possibly grab and or take advantage of as a low income or fixed income beneficiary, including money, benefits, raises to benefits, programs, checks, stimulus, or anything else like that. Of course, I want to bring it to your attention right away. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, so you don't miss any videos going forward, and I'll continue to be here for you right by your side, as that's my dedication and my commitment, and as always, I'm sticking to it. Alright, thanks again. Let's jump into it and talk about Joe Manchin, the name we haven't heard in quite a few months. Honestly, this guy has not been in the headlines for quite a few months. However, here he is. He's back. So let's talk about Joe Manchin and what he said, because he hasn't been around and all of a sudden he popped out of nowhere and boom, there's Joe Manchin and he's making some remarks on Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, which by the way, let me break this down for you really quickly. The beneficiaries under the Social Security umbrella being Social Security retirement, SSDI, survivors, and of course SSI beneficiaries, all of these beneficiaries encompass about 70 million beneficiaries. Medicare, about 63 million beneficiaries. Medicaid, about 89 million beneficiaries. A lot of people. We're talking about a lot of people under these three programs, okay? So it kind of gives you the magnitude behind how many people are covered by these programs. Now, obviously, there is some overlap, because the vast majority of Social Security beneficiaries are also covered by Medicare, right? So obviously there is some overlap, but again, Medicare and Medicaid don't overlap necessarily, right? So again, we're talking about tens of millions, over 100 million people here just between these programs, okay? So some big stuff here. All right, so let's quickly talk about what Joe Manchin said and what he wants to work on with this bipartisan legislation. So Joe Manchin was recently out and he was discussing these three programs and how he wants to start working on bipartisan legislation over the next 2 years to shore up these programs, because we know the finances of these programs are pretty bad, right? We know the finances of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are not looking good right now, right? Now, obviously, we have a little bit of time before we really get into a deep situation with these programs, but realistically, it's not that far out. In fact, Medicare is only a couple years out until we have some serious problems with Medicare. Social Security is only a few years out as well. And again, Medicaid, that has its own set of problems as well. So these programs, even though they send out monthly benefits and they cover millions and millions, tens of millions, over 100 million people collectively, they got some major financial problems. Well, Joe Manchin wants to come together and work bipartisan legislation, okay? What does that mean? Simply, he wants to work with parties, so Republicans and Democrats coming together on bipartisan piece of legislation to make sure that these programs are working appropriately and that they're good to go and that they're shored up for many more years and decades to come and many more generations to come into the future as well, right? This is good stuff. I mean, seriously. When was the last time that Congress came together and worked on a bipartisan basis to work on all these programs? Not really sure. Good question. It's been a very long time, right? We know this, right? It's been a very, very long time. So this is actually pretty exciting because we know that Joe Manchin technically is a Democrat. However, he's kind of on the fence, right? We know that he's a very moderate Democrat. We know that he kind of, brushes along with Republicans every so often. So he is very much on the fence of a Democrat. However, he still is a Democrat, okay? But the fact is, he still wants to reach out and work with Republicans on this to get all of these programs fixed up. Now, this is actually pretty encouraging because here's the thing. We know that the new Congress is coming in, right? We know that 2023, the new Congress will be brought in. And as a result of that, these lawmakers will be in place. And this Congress, the new Congress as of 2023, will be in place for a couple years, right? So they got a lot of time ahead of them. This new Congress that's coming in here is going to have basically the authority to do what they want, with these programs. Now, again, obviously they need at least 60 votes within the Senate to get virtually anything done on these programs. And then, of course, they need to get it through the House of Representatives. And then at the end of the day, if the president doesn't sign it, it's not going to get anywhere. But here's the deal. We know that if Congress brings anything to the president, he's probably going to sign it. But again, kind of it all depends on what they bring to the president, and does he agree with, is it within the parameters of what he has been kind of outlining over the last couple of years here, talking about expanding these programs, raising benefits, and all kinds of different things that the president has said over the last several years as well, right? So very important information that we need to focus on and see what do they bring, But this is actually pretty encouraging that Joe Manchin wants to step across the aisle here and work across the board to get some legislation together to make sure that these programs are good to go for many, many more years to come. Let's quickly talk about Bernie Sanders as well. So remember in the end of 2021, there was the whole debt ceiling drama. Do you remember that? If you've been watching the videos here on the channel since, maybe October, September time of 2021, we were talking about it during that time right here on the channel. But basically what happened in the end of 2021, there was this whole debt ceiling issue. In other words, if they didn't raise the debt ceiling, the United States was going to default on all of our debt. In other words, we couldn't pay our bills, and therefore it would have been an ugly situation for the economy and all kinds of different things. Well, again, as always, they waited until the very last minute, and then they came together on a debt ceiling deal, and they raised the debt ceiling, and all was avoided, all was good to go. Well, the debt ceiling issue is coming up yet again. Yeah, I know, we just went through this, but here it is. It's coming up again. However, it's not coming up this year necessarily, but yet it's coming up next year, okay? So in about a year. Well, as a result of that, Bernie Sanders was recently out as well, suggesting that the current Congress in late 2022 should come together and pass a raise to the debt ceiling so that the new Congress doesn't need to worry about it, okay? So basically he wants Democrats to come together right now and raise the debt ceiling so that the next Congress in 2023 is no longer on the hook to do it. So obviously Bernie Sanders is feeling a little bit concerned about the debt ceiling. I've even reading a few different pieces of information coming out right now suggesting that there may be a bunch of debt ceiling drama yet again in the late 2023 as well. We'll see about that. Obviously, we're a long time out from that. We will see if that's going to be some drama again. But at the end of the day, are they really going to let the United States default? Not happening. They're just not going to let it happen, okay? Of course, they're going to come out and say, oh, we're not going to do anything. Watch out. We're going to default and all this kind of stuff, and it's going to crush the economy and all this business. They're not going to let it default. Maybe there's a rare chance that they would, but for the most part, they're just not going to, okay? It would not be advantageous to anybody, so there's no reason that they would, right? But again, they can always use it as negotiating power, right? They can use the debt ceiling topic as a reason to negotiate and give them some leverage and say, we're not going to do this unless we get that. And that's what, and then they use the debt ceiling as leverage for negotiations. So they could also do that as well. But anyway, when it comes down to it, we got some interesting remarks out of Joe Manchin, and we'll see here, like I've been saying for a while now, I anticipate 2023 with the new Congress and everything like this, I would anticipate we're going to get some pretty interesting piece of legislation, some new interesting pieces, some bills coming out, some new announcements, some new information coming out of the new Congress on Social Security, retirement, SSDI, survivors, SSI, VA, RRB, and yes, Medicare and Medicaid. I would not be shocked one bit at all to see some very interesting piece of legislation and bills coming out in 2023 and beyond with the new legislation coming out, and you never know. Some of it might be really, really good, and you never know. Some of it might actually get passed, because we know that the last couple years here, they've done nothing. They've come together. They've introduced a lot of pieces of legislation, but they've done absolutely nothing on any of them, right? So You've heard all the pieces of legislation that are brought to you over the last couple of years here. I've talked about all of them, and there's a lot. Like, I don't know, 12, 13 different bills that have hit the table here over the last probably 2 years or so, year and a half or so. And they've all talked about increasing benefits, expanding benefits, increasing the COLA, adjusting the way that the COLA is calculated, all kinds of different things. And they've done nothing. A whole bunch of nothing is what they've gotten done. So you never know. The new Congress could be pretty exciting. You never know. But either way, I'll continue watching all of it, and I'll bring it to you right here in these short videos as I do get that information. So again, please subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. Share the video with your friends, family, social media, and go back and check out any of the other thousands and thousands of videos here on the channel. Until next time, thanks so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Leave your comments, questions, and feedback down below, and I'll do my best to answer them as well. Come back and make a dedicated video if I see the same questions coming up time and time again. I'll do my best to be here for you in any way that I possibly can be. So again, until next time, enjoy your day, subscribe down below, and have a good one. I'll catch you again later in the next